For 100 years, the Zithran Empire prepared for a single war. Not a campaign. Not a skirmish. Conquest. Earth had first appeared on their deep space scans as an unremarkable world, oxygen-rich, biologically dense, technologically immature. At first, it was dismissed. The galaxy held far greater prizes. But then they studied its history. And everything changed. The Zithrans were not impulsive conquerors like the lesser species they had erased across the stars. They believed in certainty. In perfection. Every war they fought was won before the first shot was fired. So they began with humanity's greatest weakness and its greatest strength. They consumed it. Every conflict Earth had ever recorded was extracted, translated, and simulated. From primitive tribal clashes fought with stone and bone, to mechanized global wars that scorched continents, to shadow conflicts fought in silence, in code, and in secrecy. The Zithrans studied it all. They dissected strategies, tactics, psychology. They mapped human reactions to fear, to loss, to overwhelming force. They observed patterns, clear, predictable patterns. Humans fractured under pressure. Humans fought each other more than they fought their enemies. Humans relied on hierarchy, communication, and fragile supply chains. Individually dangerous. Collectively flawed. The conclusion was unanimous across the High War Council. Humanity is inefficient. Victory will be absolute. And so, the preparation began. Zithran soldiers were not recruited. They were designed. Each generation was engineered from the last, stronger, faster, more precise. Their bodies were perfected for combat in varied environments. Their minds were stripped of hesitation, doubt, and fear. Training began before consciousness fully formed. Simulated battlefields surrounded them from birth, endless wars against human models constructed from a century of observation. Every possible strategy humanity could deploy was tested, countered, and mastered. Urban warfare, guerrilla resistance, cyber infiltration, even nuclear retaliation scenarios. Every outcome ended the same way. Human defeat. By the 50th year, the Zithrans had achieved what they believed was perfection. By the 75th, they had refined it. By the 100th, they had eliminated even the possibility of failure. Far beyond Earth's detection range, the invasion fleet gathered. It was not merely large. It was overwhelming. Thousands of warships formed a silent armada, sleek, black constructs designed for efficiency, not beauty. Each vessel carried legions of soldiers, atmospheric weapons, and precision strike systems capable of disabling an entire planet's infrastructure in minutes. At the center of it all stood the flagship, Oblivion's Spear. Inside its command chamber, High Commander Verex stood motionless, observing the holographic projection of Earth. Blue, green, alive, fragile. To him, it was already conquered. Final projections? He asked. A strategist stepped forward, its voice perfectly steady. Total victory within 3 planetary hours. Residual resistance eliminated within 1 rotation. And casualties? Minimal. Verex nodded. This was as expected. What intrigued him, however, was humanity itself. They fight each other constantly, one of his advisors remarked. Their history is inefficient. Wasteful. Yes, Verex replied. But persistent. The advisor hesitated. Persistence does not equate to effectiveness. Verex said nothing for a moment. He had studied the same data, seen the same patterns, and yet there was something unsettling buried within the chaos. Humans lost wars they should have won, but they also won wars they should have lost. No model had fully explained that. Still, uncertainty had been accounted for. It had been eliminated. Signal readiness, Verex ordered. Across the fleet, systems activated in perfect synchronization. Communications jammers powered up, preparing to silence the planet before the first strike. Orbital cannons aligned with critical infrastructure targets. Dropships readied for rapid deployment across every major population center. This was not war. This was execution. On Earth, nothing had changed. Cities pulsed with life. Lights burned across continents. Aircraft crossed the skies, unaware. Data flowed endlessly through networks, carrying the noise of a species that believed itself alone. They had no idea they had already been judged. No idea that, for a century, their every move had been studied. No idea that an army had been built specifically to destroy them. "Commander," the strategist said, "all units are in position." Verex stepped forward, placing a hand over the control interface. For 100 years, the Zithran Empire had prepared for this moment. Every calculation complete. Every variable controlled. Every outcome certain. He looked once more at the image of Earth. "Begin." The fleet moved as one. Space itself seemed to ripple as thousands of ships broke concealment simultaneously, descending toward the planet in absolute silence. Within seconds, Earth's satellites began to fail. Communication networks flickered. Darkness. A global blackout spread like a wave. Humanity's world, so loud moments before, fell into confusion. And above them, the stars disappeared. On the bridge of Oblivion's spear, Verex watched the chaos unfold. Phase 1 initiated, the strategist reported. No response from planetary leadership. Verex frowned slightly. No response. None. No surrender signals. No coordinated defense detected. Silence lingered in the command chamber. For the first time, something deviated from expectation. Verex leaned forward. "Continue." Dropships launched. The invasion had begun. And far below, humanity was still silent. Watching. Waiting. Unpredictable. The sky changed first. Not with fire. Not with sound. But with absence. Across the world, people looked up and saw the stars vanish, one by one, then all at once, replaced by something darker. Ships. Massive, unnatural silhouettes stretching across the heavens. Then came the silence. Phones died mid-call. Satellites dropped from orbit. Entire cities lost power in a single breath. Aircraft systems flickered. Military networks collapsed as if something had reached down and simply turned them off. Within 30 seconds, humanity's connected world was gone. And in its place, confusion. In New York, traffic froze as drivers stepped out of their cars, staring upward. In Beijing, entire districts plunged into darkness, emergency sirens failing before they could fully sound. In Moscow, defense systems attempted to activate, only to shut down instantly. In Delhi, millions watched as the sky itself seemed to move. Across every continent, humanity felt the same thing. Something had arrived. Then the message came. It didn't come through phones, or televisions, or radios. It came through everything. A single frequency, impossible to block, forced its way into every functioning device, every speaker, every signal system still clinging to life. The voice was cold, perfectly controlled. "Alien. Inhabitants of Earth. Your species has been evaluated. Resistance is illogical. Surrender immediately. Your extinction will be efficient." The message repeated. And again. And again. In underground bunkers, military commanders stared at dead screens and static-filled channels. "Get me anything," one shouted. "Satellite, radio, visual, anything." "Nothing's responding." "Are we under attack?" "No confirmed strikes yet." "Then what the hell is this?" No one had an answer. Because there were no explosions. No missiles. No obvious signs of war. Control. High above the planet, inside the flagship Oblivion's spear, High Commander Verex observed. Planetary paralysis confirmed, the strategist reported. Communication grid neutralized. Defensive response negligible. Verex nodded slowly. Expected. He turned his gaze to the tactical projection. Earth glowed beneath them, its systems dimming, its coordination collapsing. Humanity had been reduced to isolated fragments within seconds. Exactly as predicted. "And the surrender?" he asked. A brief pause. None detected. Verex's expression hardened slightly. "Repeat the message." The signal surged again across the planet. "Surrender immediately. Your extinction will be efficient." This time, humans listened more closely. In homes, in streets, in the darkened remains of control rooms. They heard it, understood it. Still, no one answered. Varex watched the silence stretch. 10 seconds. 20. A full minute. Nothing. One of his officers spoke cautiously. "Commander, it is possible they do not understand the message." "They understand," Varex replied. "We translated their entire linguistic network." "Then why no response?" Varex didn't answer immediately, because this, too, was unexpected. Humans, according to all data, negotiated. They delayed. They attempted communication even in hopeless situations. They begged. They stalled. They tried. But here, there was nothing. No global broadcast. No desperate signal. No surrender. Just silence. Perhaps, another officer suggested, they are incapable of unified response. Their governments may be fragmented. Varex considered that. It aligned with the data. Humanity was divided. Inefficient. Chaotic. That must be it. He straightened. Begin Phase 1. Across the fleet, orders cascaded instantly. Dropship bays opened. Thousands of vessels ignited simultaneously, streaking toward the planet like falling stars. Except these burned cold, their descent controlled, deliberate. Target zones locked. Major cities. Strategic locations. Population centers. The Zithrans would not waste time. They would end it quickly. On Earth, people saw them coming. Lines of light cutting through the sky. Silent. Terrifying. In Los Angeles, someone whispered, "They're landing." In London, crowds gathered despite the fear, unable to look away. In rural regions, far from cities, people stood beneath open skies and watched the same thing unfold. It didn't matter where you were. You saw it. You felt it. The moment before something irreversible begins. The first dropships touched down within minutes. New York, Beijing, Moscow, Sao Paulo. Dozens of cities at once. Perfect synchronization. Zithran soldiers emerged. Armored. Precise. Weapons ready. Movements flawless. They spread outward information, securing perimeters, scanning for threats. But there were none. No organized resistance. No immediate counterattack. Just scattered humans. Watching. Running. Hiding. Initial deployment successful. A strategist reported aboard Oblivion's spear. No resistance encountered. Varex exhaled slowly. Everything was returning to expectation. Proceed. The second wave launched. Then the third. Within minutes, the Zithrans had established footholds across the planet. Control was spreading. Still, no coordinated response. Varex allowed himself the smallest hint of satisfaction. A century of preparation. Perfect execution. A flawless beginning. But something changed. "Commander," one of the officers said. Varex turned. "Report." "There is an anomaly." "What kind of anomaly?" The officer hesitated. "A signal." Varex frowned. "That is impossible. We control all planetary frequencies." "Yes, Commander." "Then explain." The officer's voice lowered. "It is not using any system we recognize." For the first time since the invasion began, Varex felt uncertainty. "Play it." The signal cut through the command chamber. Unfiltered. Untranslated. But perfectly clear. A human voice. Steady. Unafraid. "You made a mistake." Silence fell across the bridge. Every Zithran present turned toward the source. No trace. No origin. No explanation. Varex's eyes narrowed. "A mistake." He stepped forward. "Locate the signal." "We can't." "Track it." "It's everywhere." Below them, on the surface of Earth, something had begun. And the Zithrans didn't understand it. Not yet. The war began exactly as predicted. For 60 seconds, the Zithran Empire experienced perfection. Across Earth's major cities, their forces advanced with mechanical precision. In New York, armored units moved block by block, sealing intersections, establishing control zones, neutralizing any sign of resistance before it could form. In Beijing, strike teams infiltrated critical infrastructure, shutting down power grids and transportation networks with surgical efficiency. In Moscow, defensive installations were dismantled before their operators even realized they were under attack. Everywhere. The same pattern. The same result. Dominance. On the bridge of Oblivion's spear, High Commander Verex watched it unfold. Phase 1 proceeding within optimal parameters, a strategist reported. No organized resistance detected. Civilian movement is chaotic and uncoordinated. Verex nodded. This was what a conquered world looked like. Inevitable. Below, Zithran soldiers moved like a single organism. Their training, 100 years of refinement, showed in every motion. They communicated without words, reacted without hesitation, executed orders with flawless timing. Humans fled before them. Scattered. Panicked. Predictable. Commander, another officer said. Initial projections holding. Estimated full planetary control within 2 hours. Verex allowed himself a rare moment of stillness. It was done. The century of preparation had been justified. Minute 2 began. The first report came from a unit in New York. Sector secured. No resistance. The transmission cut off. Abruptly. No static. No distortion. Gone. The strategist frowned. Signal loss. Possible interference, another replied. Re-establish contact. They tried. Nothing. A second report came seconds later. Beijing unit advancing. Area clear. Silence. Gone. Verex turned sharply. Explain. Across the tactical display, small indicators, representing individual units, began to flicker. Disappear. Commander, an officer said, voice tightening. We are losing multiple ground units. To what? Verex demanded. No confirmed hostile engagement. No weapon signatures. No visible threats. That is impossible. On the surface, something had changed. In New York, a Zithran squad moved through an empty street, weapons raised, scanning. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. Their sensors showed no heat signatures beyond scattered civilians hiding in buildings. No weapons. No movement. Nothing. One soldier stopped. Contact. The rest turned. But there was nothing there. A second later, he was gone. Not fallen. Not destroyed. Gone. The squad froze. That wasn't possible. Their armor recorded everything. Their sensors detected everything. Nothing could approach them undetected. Nothing could remove a soldier without leaving a trace. Report, the squad leader ordered. No response. Before he could speak again, another soldier vanished. No sound. No flash. No warning. Panic, something they were engineered not to feel, began to surface. Form defensive. A third disappeared mid-sentence. The remaining soldiers opened fire. At nothing. Energy blasts tore through empty air, shattering glass, carving into concrete. But there was no target. Within seconds, the entire squad was gone. On Oblivion's spear, the tactical display updated. New York unit, offline. This is spreading, the strategist said. Multiple cities reporting similar losses. Define, similar, Verex snapped. The strategist hesitated. Units disappearing without engagement. That is not warfare, Verex said coldly. No, Commander. It is malfunction. System error. We have run diagnostics. All systems are functioning. Another report came in, this time from Cairo. Engaged unknown hostile, visual negative, requesting. Gone. Then Berlin. Then Sao Paulo. Then Delhi. Everywhere. Verex stepped forward, his voice cutting through the rising tension. Deploy aerial surveillance. Already in progress. Then show me the enemy. The feeds appeared. Dozens of viewpoints across the planet. Cities under occupation. Zithran forces advancing. And then, Something new. A figure. Human. Standing in the open. Unarmed. In Berlin, a Zithran patrol approached the figure cautiously. Identify yourself, the squad leader demanded. The human didn't respond. Didn't move. The soldiers raised their weapons. The human tilted their head slightly. And then, the feed cut. Replay that, Varex ordered. They tried. The footage glitched. Corrupted. Incomplete. Where did the unit go? Varex asked. No one answered. Because the answer was the same everywhere. They were gone. Commander, the strategist said, voice tight. We are losing units faster than we can track. How many? Dozens. The number updated. Hundreds. Varex felt it then. Not fear, but something close. This is not possible, he said quietly, because they had prepared for everything. Every tactic. Every strategy. Every possible form of resistance. But this was not in the simulations. Another signal cut through their systems. The same one as before. Untraceable. The human voice returned. You studied our wars. But you never understood them. The bridge fell silent. Varex stared at the tactical display as more units vanished. No explosions. No battles. No visible enemy. Plus, for the first time in 100 years of preparation, the Zithran Empire was not in control. And the war had only lasted 2 minutes. By the 6th minute, perfection was gone. In its place, confusion. On the bridge of Oblivion's spear, the tactical display no longer resembled a battlefield. It resembled a collapse. Red indicators spread across the holographic map of Earth, each one marking a lost unit. Entire deployment zones had gone dark. Cities that should have been secured were now empty. Not contested. Not reclaimed. Empty. Report, High Commander Varex demanded. His voice was sharper now. Tighter. Not uncertainty, but something close to it. Ground forces are no longer responding across multiple sectors, the strategist said. We are unable to maintain consistent communication with any deployed unit beyond short bursts. Define short bursts. Less than 3 seconds. Another officer stepped in. Aerial support is also failing. Dropships are being destroyed mid-flight without detectable anti-air weaponry. Varex turned. No weapon signatures? None. No tracking? None. That is impossible. Below, Earth no longer behaved like a conquered world. It behaved like a trap. In Berlin, a Zithran reconnaissance drone hovered above a narrow street. Its sensors scanned continuously. Heat signatures, minimal. Movement, negligible. Threat level, none. Area clear. The drone transmitted. The signal shifted. The drone's camera tilted slightly. A human stood in the street, still looking directly at it. Identify. The transmission cut. The drone fell from the sky. On the flagship, the feed vanished. Show me another sector, Varex ordered. The display shifted to the Pacific. A Zithran dropship moved low over open water, scanning for coastal targets. Everything was stable. Controlled. A small vessel appeared below. Primitive. Wooden. A human stood inside it. Insignificant, one officer muttered. The human raised an arm. Threw something. A small object struck the underside of the dropship. No explosion. No immediate effect. 3 seconds later, the dropship disintegrated. Not exploded. Not damaged. Erased. The feed cut. Silence spread across the bridge. What was that? One of the officers whispered. No one answered. Because there was no data. No analysis. No explanation. Next sector, Varex said. A Zithran battalion advanced through a dense urban corridor. Tight formation. Weapons ready. Sensors active. Maintain spacing, the squad leader ordered. Environmental anomalies possible. They turned a corner. The street ahead was narrow. Architecturally insignificant. Proceed, the leader said. They entered. One by one. The last soldier stepped into the street. And then, nothing. The entire battalion disappeared from every system. No signal loss. No interference. Gone. The tactical display updated. Cairo unit, offline. On the bridge, the silence deepened. This is not warfare, Varric said slowly. No, Commander, the strategist replied. Varric's hands tightened behind his back. For 100 years, they had studied humanity, analyzed it, dissected it, reduced it to patterns. But this had no pattern. They are not engaging us directly, an officer said. There is no centralized command. No large-scale coordination. Then what are they doing? Varric asked. The officer hesitated. They are hunting. The word lingered, because it was accurate. This was not a defensive war. Not a counterattack. It was something else. On the ground, Zithran soldiers began to hesitate. Not out of fear, but because their training no longer applied. There were no battle lines. No formations to break. No enemy to overwhelm. Moments. Moments where something happened. And then, they were gone. Commander, the strategist said. Varric turned. We have identified isolated human presence near multiple loss zones. Define presence. Single individuals. Small groups. Never more than 5. Varric's eyes narrowed. That is not a military force. No, Commander. Then why are we losing? No one answered. Because the answer was becoming clear. They had prepared for armies. For governments. For structured resistance. They had not prepared for humans. The signal returned. Untraceable. Unstoppable. The same voice. You planned for war. We don't fight like that. The bridge remained silent. Varric stepped closer to the tactical display. Watched as another cluster of units vanished. Then another. Then another. How many remaining? He asked. The strategist checked. Hesitated. Less than 40% of deployed forces are still active. 6 minutes. It had taken 6 minutes for the Zithran Empire's perfect invasion to begin collapsing. And they still did not understand why. Varric spoke quieter now. These are not soldiers. An officer beside him responded, almost reluctantly. Sir. The pause. They are. And somewhere below. In the chaos, in the silence, in the unseen spaces between moments, humanity was fighting. Not as a unified force. Not as an army. But as something far older. Far more dangerous. Something the Zithrans had never truly understood. The 6th minute ended. And the war was already lost. They just didn't know it yet. By the 12th minute, there was almost nothing left. On the bridge of Oblivion's spear, the tactical display had gone quiet. Not stabilized. Not recovered. Quiet. Where once thousands of signals marked the presence of Zithran forces across Earth, there were now only scattered remnants, isolated units flickering weakly before vanishing one by one. Status, High Commander Varric said. His voice no longer carried authority. Only disbelief. The strategist hesitated before answering. Ground forces effectively non-operational. How many remain? Uncertain. Less than 5%. Varric stared at the projection. 12 minutes. 100 years of preparation. And it had unraveled in 12 minutes. How? He whispered. No one responded. Because there was no answer that fit their understanding of war. Orbital dominance? Varric asked. Another officer stepped forward. Compromised. Varric turned sharply. Explain. We are losing ships. That should have been impossible. The fleet had remained untouched. No human weapons had reached orbit. No defenses had been detected. From what? Varric demanded. The officer's voice faltered. We don't know. Outside the flagship, space itself seemed calm. Silent. Unchanged. A Zithran warship, positioned thousands of kilometers from Earth's surface, suddenly went dark. No explosion. No warning. Its lights vanished. Its systems died. And then, it drifted. Another followed. Then another. Across the fleet, ships began to fall silent. Commander, the strategist said, barely controlled. We are detecting internal failures across multiple vessels. Failures? Yes, but they are not mechanical. What does that mean? It means... The strategist hesitated. Something is inside. Varex's gaze hardened. Seal all internal sections. Activate full security protocols. Orders spread instantly across the fleet. Bulkheads closed. Defense systems armed. Sensors turned inward. Too late. On the lower decks of Oblivion's Spear, something moved. No alarms triggered. No sensors reacted. Because there was nothing to detect. Absence. A Zithran security squad advanced through a corridor. Weapons raised. Formations tight. Report all sectors, the leader ordered. Sector clear. Sector clear. Sector. Silence. The last word never finished. One by one, the squad disappeared. No sound. No struggle. Gone. On the bridge, Varex felt it. Not through sensors. Not through reports. But through instinct. Something was wrong. Commander, an officer began. The lights flickered. Twice. Then stabilized. But something had changed. The air felt different. Varex turned slowly. And saw it. A human. Standing at the far end of the bridge. No armor. No weapon. No visible means of entry. Standing. The Zithran guards reacted instantly. Weapons raised. Target locked. Do not move, one of them commanded. The human didn't respond. Didn't react. Just watched. Varex stepped forward. His voice steady, barely. This is impossible. The human tilted their head slightly. Is it? The voice was the same. The one from the signal. Unshaken. You have no technology capable of this, Varex said. The human smiled faintly. That's where you went wrong. Around them, systems began to fail. Displays flickered. Controls went unresponsive. The flagship, the center of the greatest invasion fleet ever assembled, was losing control. Varex clenched his fists. We studied your species for 100 years, he said. We accounted for everything. The human took a step forward. And for the first time, the Zithran guards hesitated. Yeah, the human said quietly. You studied our wars. Another step. But you never understood them. Varex felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, but realization. A slow, crushing understanding. They hadn't lost because they were weaker. They hadn't lost because of superior weapons. They had lost because they had misunderstood the enemy. Humans don't fight wars the same way twice, the human continued. Another step closer. We don't follow patterns. Another. We don't wait for orders. Closer still. And we definitely don't fight fair. Behind Varex, one of the officers whispered, Commander. But Varex didn't respond. Because he couldn't look away. This isn't war, Varex said quietly. The human stopped. Then nodded. No. The pause. It's survival. The last Zithran ships went dark. Cross-Earth. The invasion ended. Not with victory. Not with surrender. But with silence. On the bridge, Varex took a breath. What are you? He asked. The human looked at him. Not with anger. Not with hatred. But with something far older. Something that had endured. For thousands of years. Us? The human said. A faint smile. We're what's left. 12 minutes after it began, the greatest invasion in galactic history was over. And the Zithran Empire never understood why.